There's a silence that often goes unnoticed, a silence that appears when you realize that maybe, despite everything you've studied, everything you've practiced, everything you've repeated in affirmations or journals, life still seems to be holding you in the same place. And that silence is uncomfortable because it asks, if I already know so much about manifestation, why do I still feel stuck? Why do my results not reflect what I say I believe? This is the hidden pain of the basics. We think we've mastered them, when in truth the proof is always in the life we are living. Neville Goddard said that manifestation is never about tricks, never about steps, and never about effort. It is always about identity. It is about assumption, the invisible choice of being. Yet many treat these basics as if they were childish, as if they were too simple to carry the weight of reality. And so they keep searching for advanced techniques, new meditations, secret rituals, while the foundation of their house remains weak. But what if the simple things, the invisible basics, are not just the beginning but the whole structure? What if everything you will ever manifest depends on whether you embody these basics or whether you keep dismissing them as too easy? Joe Dispenza reminds us that the brain and nervous system must be rewired in order for a new state of being to feel natural. Repetition creates change. Neuroplasticity, the physical reshaping of your inner circuitry, does not happen when you try once and see if it works. It happens the same way you once learned to walk, to write your name, or to ride a bicycle, through the body, slowly adjusting, repeating, falling, and then suddenly realizing it has become second nature. Manifestation is not different. The basics are not just intellectual knowledge. They are training for your nervous system to rest in a new vibration until it is as effortless as breathing. Think of a child learning to walk. At first, every step feels like an impossible task. They stumble, they fall, they cry. But one day, the impossible becomes natural, and walking is no longer a skill, it is identity. And from walking comes the ability to run, to dance, to climb mountains. Without those shaky first steps, there would be no freedom of movement. So it is with manifestation. The basics are the shaky steps of consciousness. They look simple, even clumsy, but they are the only way you will ever run in freedom, ever dance with life, ever climb the mountain of your highest self. So I ask you gently, are you truly practicing the basics, or have you only memorized them? Do you live as the wish fulfilled, or do you still live as someone waiting? Do you speak the inner words of your new identity, or do you repeat the old conversations of lack? These are not small questions. They are the entire foundation, and until you honor them, until you embody them with reverence, you will always circle around the same frustrations, thinking you are advanced while missing the essence. This is why the basics are the hardest to master, not because they are complicated, but because they ask for humility. They ask you to return again and again to the root. They ask you to release your hunger for novelty, and instead dwell in repetition until the truth becomes flesh. Manifestation is not a game of the mind, it is the recreation of your being. And that recreation begins with these fundamentals, lived until they are no longer practice, but nature. And so, as we enter into the 10 manifestation secrets of Neville Goddard, remember, you are not here to collect ideas. You are here to return to the root, to walk again with awareness until walking becomes flying. The tree does not envy the fruit if the roots are deep. And your life will not fail to blossom if you let the basics become your very ground. The 1. Assumption outweighs effort. There is a hidden tension that many carry in silence, the belief that effort is the price of manifestation. You work harder, repeat affirmations longer, strain to visualize with more intensity, hoping that effort itself will unlock the door to your desire. Yet the more effort you apply, the more distant the desire seems to become. And that is because effort secretly confesses lack. To strain is to declare, I do not yet have it. To try harder is to whisper, it is not yet mine. Neville Goddard spoke with clarity. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not work for it. Not fight for it. Not repeat it endlessly as if trying to convince the universe. He said to assume, to stand inwardly as though it were already so. This is not the energy of striving. It is the energy of being. And being is always greater than doing. The assumption of identity is what plants the seed in consciousness. The tree grows not because the gardener strains, but because the seed carries within it the quiet law of life. When you choose assumption, You step into a frequency where effort is dissolved. You are no longer pleading with life to deliver something. You are no longer on your knees begging reality to change. Instead, you are resting in the invisible certainty that it is already done. And this rest is not passive. It is the deepest creative force. To assume is to know, and to know is to let the invisible solidify into form. Imagine replaying a single scene, not as fantasy, not as a desperate request, but as a settled identity. Each night, as your body surrenders to sleep, you replay one imaginal moment that affirms, it is already real. You see yourself shaking a friend's hand after the promotion. You hear the words, congratulations. You feel the comfort of financial freedom as naturally as you feel the pillow beneath your head. That scene, repeated in stillness, is more powerful than 1,000 hours of affirmations shouted in doubt. Assumption outweighs effort, because assumption flows from the truth that you already are. Effort flows from the illusion that you are not yet, and when you live from assumption, your nervous system begins to reorganize itself around that new identity. The body softens, the heart calms, and the mind no longer races with questions of when or how. You walk as if it were already yours, and in that walk, creation responds. The secret is simple. One imaginal scene lived consistently will outlast every frantic attempt to force reality. Stop trying to convince the world. Let your assumption convince you. For what you accept in silence, the world has no choice but to echo. 2. Identity creates experience. There is a quiet paradox in manifestation. People often chase results while refusing to change the one thing that shapes every result, their own identity. They set intentions for money while still seeing themselves as someone who struggles. They speak affirmations of love while holding the self-image of someone unworthy. They meditate for health while silently believing their body is fragile. And then they wonder why nothing changes. The answer is simple. Experience cannot outrun identity. You cannot harvest oranges from a seed of ash. Your self-image is the silent filter of reality. It is the lens through which every possibility is colored. No matter what actions you take, no matter what opportunities appear, your identity sets the limit of what you will allow yourself to receive. Psychology has a name for this, the Galatea effect, the phenomenon of living up to the expectations you hold of yourself. If you see yourself as a person of limitation, your actions will unconsciously align with limitation. If you see yourself as someone abundant, your entire energy field rearranges to match that truth. Consider the image of a thermostat. A thermostat does not heat or cool randomly. It is set to maintain an environment that reflects its programmed temperature. If the room grows too warm, the thermostat cools it down. If the room cools too much, the thermostat warms it again. Identity functions in the same way. You cannot rise higher than the setting of your self-concept. Even if money flows in, if your inner thermostat is set to scarcity, you will find a way to lose it, block it, or sabotage it. Reality will always return to the temperature of who you believe you are. This is why Neville insisted that manifestation is not about acquiring things, it is about assuming a new state of being. When you change the inner I am, the outer I have cannot resist. Identity creates the environment in which every desire lives. And when that identity is aligned with abundance, love, freedom, and peace, experience has no choice but to mirror it. So the true question is never, how can I get this? The true question is, who am I being? The mirror of life does not reflect what you beg for. It reflects who you are, certain you are. The moment you shift your self-image, you have already shifted your future. And reality, like a faithful shadow, simply follows. There are 3. The power of the unseen conversation. There is a dialogue that never leaves you, a dialogue so constant, so intimate, that you may not even notice it unfolding. It is the whisper behind your thoughts, the silent commentary that narrates every moment of your day. Neville called it your inner speech, and he declared it to be the very act of creation itself. Life does not simply respond to what you do. It reflects the conversations you keep within yourself, in the privacy of imagination where no one else can hear. Think about how much time you spend correcting the outer world, working harder, making lists, chasing opportunities, or explaining yourself to others. And yet none of this matters if the unseen conversation inside you contradicts it. If your lips say, "I am worthy," but your inner voice mutters, "I am still behind," it is the muttering that shapes reality. If you act as though you trust, but your secret thoughts rehearse failure, it is the rehearsal that life takes as the script. Your inner words are not powerless whispers. They are commands that echo into the unseen. Every complaint, every fear repeated inside, every story you silently retell yourself about your limits is a seed falling into fertile soil. The outer world is not punishing you. It is simply performing the lines you have been writing all along. That is why Neville insisted that the correction must happen within, that the shift of conversation is the true transformation. Imagine your inner speech as a sacred script. Each word rehearsed within you is given to the stage of life. If your hidden dialogue is soaked with doubt, then the play performed around you will be filled with obstacles. If your inner speech carries the sound of certainty, joy, and fulfillment, then life itself will have no choice but to act it out. The stage does not argue with the script. It obeys. The invitation is not to battle your thoughts, but to become deeply aware of the conversation you are already having with yourself, to notice whether it is aligned with the life you claim to desire, or whether it secretly undermines it. When you shift that inner dialogue, when you replace complaint with quiet assumption, when you let your words inside be saturated with fulfillment, you are not pretending. You are programming the stage. And so the unseen conversation becomes the foundation of all creation. Life is not responding to your outer voice, but to the hidden language of your heart and mind. What you speak within yourself consistently, inevitably finds its way into form, for the inner dialogue is the author, and the world is simply the performance. The metaphor, desire is permission, not proof of lack. There is a misunderstanding that quietly poisons many spiritual journeys, the idea that to want something means you are incomplete, that if you feel desire, you must be coming from a place of emptiness or greed. And so, people bury their longings, ashamed to admit them, convincing themselves that to be spiritual is to have no desires. Yet Neville taught something very different. He revealed that desire itself is not lack. It is life speaking through you. Desire is not a flaw in your being. It is the pulse of creation moving within you. It is the whisper of the infinite suggesting a new possibility, calling you to a state that already exists in the unseen. Neville said that every desire you hold has its origin in God. If it lives within you with persistence, it is because fulfillment already exists. The very fact that you hunger is proof that food exists. The longing is not evidence of absence, it is evidence of presence. Think about hunger. Hunger does not prove that food is missing from existence. Hunger proves that food is real, that nourishment awaits. Desire works the same way. The presence of desire is confirmation that what you seek already lives in the invisible field. Otherwise, the longing could not have been born in you at all. To feel desire is to be given permission to claim it. It is not a deficiency, it is an invitation. When you deny your desires out of guilt, you close the door to the very guidance meant to lead you. When you label them as selfish or foolish, you silence the voice of creation. The truth is that your desires are sacred. They are the compass of your becoming, pointing you toward the states of being you are ready to inhabit. Without desire, life would stagnate. With desire, life evolves. So the next time a vision rises in you, do not shrink from it. Do not say, "This means I am lacking." Instead say, "This means it already exists and it is mine to embody." See desire not as a hole to be filled, but as a key already placed in your hand. The door is waiting, and the presence of longing is proof that it is already unlocked. 5. The body must feel it too. The mind may dream, but if the body remains anchored in the old state, the dream struggles to take root. You may picture wealth, yet if your body still tenses with fear when you look at your bills, the old vibration continues to speak louder than your imagination. You may imagine love, yet if your chest still contracts with memories of rejection, the nervous system is rehearsing abandonment instead of companionship. This is why Neville insisted that the feeling is the secret, and this is why Joe Dispenza reminds us that the body must be taught to feel the future now. The nervous system does not change by accident. It is sculpted by repetition, by experience repeated until the unfamiliar becomes familiar, until the new emotion becomes as natural as your heartbeat. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the rewiring of the brain and body. But in spiritual terms, it is simply teaching your temple how to host a new state of being. When the body relaxes into the feeling of abundance, when it surrenders into the vibration of love, when it softens into the presence of freedom, the desire is no longer a fantasy. It becomes embodied truth. This is why imagination must not remain in the head alone. It must descend into the heart, into the breath, into the skin. Each inhalation is an opportunity to breathe in the state of your fulfilled self. Each exhalation is a chance to release the tension of the old story. When repeated, this union of breath and imagination writes new memories into the body. It becomes second nature to feel secure, to feel chosen, to feel free. Consider how many years your body has been trained to feel scarcity, fear, or doubt. It is no wonder that at first the new state feels foreign, but repetition transforms foreign into familiar. Just as a musician trains their hands until the instrument becomes an extension of their soul, you train your body until the new state plays itself without effort. The body then becomes a living signal to the universe, radiating the vibration of the reality you have already assumed. So remember this: thought alone cannot sustain creation. The body must participate. When the heart, the breath, and the nervous system join the vision, manifestation ceases to be a mental exercise. It becomes a lived experience. And when your body knows what your mind imagines, reality bends to match the harmony. And 6. Beware of waiting energy. There is a subtle posture that many carry without realizing it, the posture of waiting. It sounds harmless, even logical. I am waiting for the money to come. I am waiting for the right person. I am waiting for the opportunity. But beneath these words lies the vibration of absence. Waiting secretly declares, "It is not yet mine. I am still incomplete until it arrives." And this very vibration becomes the invisible wall that keeps the desire at a distance. Neville was clear. You must live as though it is already true, not as someone anticipating, but as someone embodying. The truth is, waiting is the strongest form of resistance. It is a confession of delay, a silent agreement that what you long for exists outside of you, in some unreachable future. And life, faithful to your state, mirrors that delay back to you over and over again. Think of a pregnant woman. She does not walk through her days saying, "I am waiting to be a mother." She is already a mother. The child may not yet be visible in her arms, but the identity is complete. Her body, her choices, her emotions all flow from the state of motherhood. She is not waiting, she is being. And in the same way, you are not to wait for your dream. You are to carry it as though it already lives within you, shaping your steps, influencing your energy, guiding your decisions. When you shift from waiting to being, the energy of delay collapses. You stop measuring the calendar. You stop looking for signs of progress. You stop asking, "When will it happen?" Instead, you breathe as though it is done. You rest as though it is secured. You walk with the quiet assurance that nothing can withhold what already exists in your consciousness. And when this becomes natural, the outer world begins to rearrange itself without struggle. So beware of the silent temptation to wait. Waiting is a subtle agreement with lack. Being is the declaration of fulfillment. And when you stand as though it is already so, reality has no choice but to catch up. The future is not something you wait for. It is something you embody. Number 7. Naturalness is the real signal. One of Neville's most profound teachings is that the true test of assumption is not excitement, not intensity, not even passion. It is naturalness. If the state you claim still feels foreign, if it still feels like a performance you are trying to hold together, then it has not yet sunk into the roots of identity. But when it feels natural, effortless, and unquestioned, creation is already complete. Many mistake high emotion for belief. They think that if they shout affirmations with enough force or stir themselves into ecstasy during meditation, reality must obey. Yet intensity can sometimes mask doubt. Excitement can still carry the vibration of striving. Naturalness, however, carries none of this. Naturalness is calm. It is the quiet conviction that needs no performance, no exaggeration. It is the steady breath of someone who knows the sun will rise tomorrow. They do not hope for it. They simply live as though it is certain. There was once a man who assumed wealth so completely that it became his natural state. He no longer checked his bank account nervously because in his identity, abundance was already who he was. He no longer reacted to unexpected expenses because he felt himself carried by provision. This quiet naturalness, not drama or intensity, was the real signal that his assumption had taken root. And life, mirroring his inner ease, responded with opportunities, stability, and overflow. When you reach the point where your desired state feels as casual, as ordinary as breathing, you have touched the true creative signal. It is not about forcing belief. It is about living in such harmony with the assumption that it feels unremarkable. The extraordinary becomes ordinary. The miracle becomes daily life. So remember, naturalness is the indicator that you have moved beyond pretending into being. The moment it feels like the most normal thing in the world to have, to be, or to live your desire, you can release every question of when or how. For in naturalness, assumption is complete, and the world is already reshaping itself to reflect your settled truth. 8. Collapse the distance between you and it. There is a subtle illusion that keeps many trapped in longing, the idea that what they desire lives somewhere over there in the future, just out of reach. They picture the dream like a distant city, visible but separated by miles of effort. And every time they affirm or visualize, they reinforce this invisible gap. They are still someone who is walking toward, rather than someone who already stands within. Neville dissolved this illusion with a single truth. You are already that which you want to be. There is no distance between you and the state you desire, except the distance created by your own assumption. The moment you identify with being someone who lacks, you step into a timeline where the desire remains postponed. The moment you accept yourself as the one who already is, the separation collapses, and reality must echo the unity. This is why he taught to imagine from the end, not toward it, to stand on the mountaintop in consciousness, not to rehearse every step of the climb. For in imagination, you are not bound by process. You are free to claim the view, to breathe the thin air of accomplishment, to feel the ground beneath your feet as though the ascent has already happened. And when this becomes your inner state, the outer events rearrange themselves to match. Think of it like standing in front of a mirror. If you keep insisting that the reflection is almost smiling, the image will remain unfulfilled. But the moment you actually smile, the mirror collapses the distance. It reflects instantly. Life functions the same way. The world is not a future destination. It is a mirror responding to who you are now. So the secret is not to see your desire as something far away, but to embody it as present, to claim its nearness with such certainty that you no longer reach, no longer strain, no longer ask when. You stand already at the top, already in possession, already complete, and when the distance is gone within you, it disappears in the world around you. But for 9, the double life paradox. There is a struggle many encounter on this path, the feeling of living a double life. On one side, the vision of wealth, love, or freedom that they cultivate in imagination. On the other, the undeniable appearances of lack, loneliness, or limitation that meet them in daily life. And this tension can feel unbearable. How do you feel rich while the bills still arrive? How do you feel chosen when rejection still lingers in memory? How do you persist in assumption when appearances shout the opposite? Neville called this the paradox of faith. To ignore present appearances and remain loyal to your inner state. For he knew that what you see around you is not a prophecy, but a shadow of old assumptions, of yesterday's self-image, of vibrations already fading. The world you see today is not evidence of who you are now. It is only the echo of who you once believed yourself to be. To treat it as permanent truth is to let yesterday's reflection dictate tomorrow's creation. Imagine a man shaving his beard in front of a mirror. For a moment, the reflection still shows the old face, the shadow of what was, but the truth is already different. The old image lingers only because the mirror is still catching up. So it is with manifestation. What you see outside lags behind the assumption you carry within. To collapse under that lag is to hand your power back to illusion. To persist in your assumption, despite appearances, is to let the mirror catch up. This double life is not a flaw, it is a phase. It is the sacred tension between the old state fading and the new state stabilizing. To feel poor while assuming wealth, to feel unseen while assuming love, is the inevitable bridge you cross. It is not proof that the law has failed, it is proof that the old shadows are still dissolving. And the only question is, will you identify with the shadow or with the new self already alive within you. The paradox dissolves the moment you remember. Appearances are not final. They are whispers of a past state, and your persistence in assumption is the invisible force that erases those whispers until the new reality stands undeniable. 10. Persistence is the real secret. There is one obstacle that quietly defeats more people than doubt, fear, or even lack of knowledge: the temptation to give up too soon. A desire is assumed, an imaginal act repeated, a new identity embraced for a few days, maybe a few weeks. But when the outer world does not immediately bend, the heart grows restless, the mind grows impatient, and the person abandons the state. They call the law a failure, when in truth, it was persistence that was missing. Neville spoke again and again of the necessity of persistence. He urged us to remain faithful to the assumption, even when the evidence outside seemed unchanged. For he knew what modern neuroscience also confirms: the circuits of the old self do not collapse instantly. They dissolve through repetition, through consistent dwelling in the new identity, until the brain, the body, and the field itself accept it as natural. Joe Dispenza explains it simply: neuroplasticity takes time. The old networks weaken as the new ones strengthen, and this reshaping requires devotion. Persistence is not loud, not dramatic, not glamorous. It is quiet as water carving stone. Day after day, drop after drop, what seems unmovable begins to yield. You may not notice the change at first because persistence often works invisibly, beneath the surface where eyes cannot see. But one day the stone is transformed, not by force, but by gentle repetition. So it is with your assumptions. When you persist, you declare that appearances cannot deceive you. You declare that delay is only illusion. You declare that the unseen is more real than the seen. And this declaration, repeated silently through nights and days, builds an inner solidity that no external circumstance can shake. Eventually, the outer world surrenders, not because you forced it, but because you refuse to abandon your inner truth. So let persistence be your quiet companion. Do not rush. Do not demand. Do not measure progress with anxious eyes. Simply return again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Like the roots of a tree that deepens silently in the dark, your persistence anchors you until the branches above carry the weight of fruit. What is repeated becomes natural, and what is natural becomes reality. Return to the center. All secrets are one. At the heart of it all, every secret we have explored folds back into a single truth. Neville taught that all techniques, all imaginal practices, all states of being collapse into one center: assumption. To assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled is to stand already in the reality you once thought was distant. It is to bring the future into the present and to let the unseen become flesh. Joe Dispenza echoes this through the language of science. He shows us that repeated states carve new patterns in the brain and body until the nervous system itself becomes aligned with a different future. What begins as imagination becomes memory. What begins as effort becomes natural. What begins as practice becomes identity. And when identity changes, life follows as surely as dawn follows night. The greatest danger, then, is not failure. It is the temptation to chase advanced tricks while neglecting the roots. The basics may seem unremarkable, but they are the foundation upon which every manifestation rests. Without them, no structure can stand. With them, no storm can topple what you have built. To master assumption, identity, inner speech, and persistence is to master all. Think of the tree. Its beauty is not in the bark or even in the fruit. It is in the roots hidden beneath the soil. Those roots are unseen, yet they carry the weight of every branch, every leaf, every blossom. In the same way, your manifestation power does not live in spectacle or novelty. It lives in the unseen roots of assumption, invisible, quiet, but strong enough to hold the abundance of your entire life. So return to the center. Return to the root. Let every desire, every vision, every practice lead you back to the simple act of assuming it is already so. Do not rush. Do not complicate. Do not wander too far into the noise of advanced formulas. The law is simple, and its simplicity is its strength. Assume, persist, embody, and allow. And perhaps the only question that remains for you is this: if everything you want is already waiting within the soil of your assumption, are you willing now to stop chasing, to stop waiting, and to finally live as though it is already yours.